I was born in Argentina and brought up all over the world, including Malta, England, and Nigeria, and the Belgian Congo, which is now Zaire. And that gave me a real understanding and respect for cultures. And I think so far I've performed in about 140 countries around the world. And my mother, she's still alive, I'm glad to say, 98. She speaks like the Queen. And she says, when you said you were going to become a singer, I remember when I was young, I was told that if you go into show business, you had nothing else to do with your life. But the first time they saw me on television, they went, oh, then they referred to me as the star after that. You see, I was utterly naive. The reason I became a singer is quite simple. In 1960, my grandfather saw this castle for sale, Norman Castle, and he bought it. So moved in aged 12. There was no water, no heat, no electricity, no furniture. We slept on the floor in sleeping bags. But after 2 or 3 years, we turned it into a family hotel. And in the evenings, of course, there was no radio, no television, no internet, no people looking at their phones all night. And I used to sing for the guests. You know, this was the time of the Beatles, and I'd throw in a few Irish rebel songs and Bob Dylan. So occasionally one of my own songs, which went down like a lead balloon. But this was a great way to meet girls. You're 14 or 15, you're singing away. And if I hadn't had that opportunities to do hundreds of living room concerts, I would never have made the transition to become a stage performer. And my first album, I just couldn't believe it. I'm holding this in my hand. I was in tears. Oh my God, it's my first album. And I realized that I had a long way to go. And that's what I did.
It took you quite a while till you really hit the charts, though, didn't it? In my calculation, it was a good 12 years from 1974 before you started to really make a huge impact. Did you think about giving up during that time and doing something else?
Well, I have to correct you. I'm sorry, but I know that people at the time were obsessed with the charts in the UK, but that was only because you had to have a hit single before you had anything. And just in 1986, I had 3 shows sold out in the Wembley Arena
Yeah.
before Lady in Red even emerged. My second album, Spanish Train and Other Stories, became multi-platinum in Canada, huge, huge record across Canada and South Africa. Then I had 6 number 1 albums in Norway. It's all happened. Then Don't Pay the Ferryman was a global hit, and then High on Emotion. It was all a trajectory up, going up, and then Lady in Red came in, you see, and then Missing You, and it's just, I was ready for it. But to answer your question in a different way, because I was touring and touring and touring, I didn't make a penny for 12 years. Maybe that would help. It was a hard graft, but I was certainly doing very well,
You had developed a cult following along the way, hadn't you? And you were
very much so.
huge in places like Brazil and
Germany
through.
as well. I've had about 4 number 1 albums in Germany. It's still a huge country for me. United States of America, Lady in Red. It was a trajectory. I was so ready for it because fame is the drug that young people think that this is the most important thing in life. I want to be
Mm.
famous, but it's not. I could not have had such a long career without good health and a good voice. Each show is about 2.5 hours long without a break. And
Wow.
that's what we're going to bring to Australia, by the way, the solo performances.
So, Chris de Burgh, are you also saying that you had to pay your dues step by step in order for the trajectory to keep going upwards?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I was one guy with a guitar. And I did a lot of touring with a band called Supertramp. And I
Mm.
remember the first time I got to Montreal, it was in the McGill University, about 4,500 people very keen to see their heroes, Supertramp. They didn't want to know anything about this little guy with a guitar.
Of
And they were
course.
whistling and booing and I was so angry that I'd come across the Atlantic to be booed. I said, no, no. And I went off stage at the end and I went and I took an encore and I was being bloody minded. But 2 years later, my album Spanish Train was massive in Quebec. I was selling out the 3 nights in the 15,000 seat arena with Celine Dion opening act. So
Yeah.
I paid my dues. I know what it's like. There was one place in Seattle. Oh my God, the Euphoria Tavern. Never forget it. There was a netting in front of the stage where people threw bottles and some. And at that point, I thought, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is so horrible. However, there's a resilience and a fighter you have to be. And I say to people about success, you cannot appreciate success unless you appreciate failure. So you have to know what it's like. I felt like a boxer being knocked over and getting up and bloody nose and get up again. And
So, was there a time when you felt like quitting and turning your back on it all?
Well, it is a career built on disappointment, actually, I have to tell you. And I'm the only person that writes all the songs, write all the words and music. Never been part of a band. But I'm the kind of person so used to it, disappointment, that I get upset for an hour, half an hour, and I think, right, move on, next thing. You can't dwell on it. You have to keep
Yeah.
going.
There's certainly a skill in that. Did the success ever go to your head? Did you feel your feet lifting off the ground, or did you manage to stay firmly planted?
Well, I think my whole family gives me that feeling of being firmly planted, the background that I've had. Well, I'll give you an example. The first album, huge hit, three months. I go to Brazil, treated like a superstar for 10 days, and I come back home to utter apathy. And then I realized that you cannot let your ego, grow. And when my daughter won the Miss World competition, I remember saying to her, "You're a beautiful young woman, but when you come in the door of your home, you are the girl that is in a dressing gown with your no makeup and your hair. And in my career, you cannot bring the rock star into your house because you're lost otherwise if you want to keep it going that way."
So you leave the
So
ego at the door.
yeah, absolutely. I hope you can tell I'm a pretty normal kind of a person
You really
who's had
are.
I've had a very, very fortunate career. Very, very lucky to still be doing this. I'm in good health. The voice is, I've never seen you looking so lovely. But the voice is in great shape.
Do you have to keep practicing your chops? I mean, do you sing in the shower? Do you set aside a time during the day to keep that muscle active, or you're doing that many shows that you don't need to?
Well, the answer is before a tour starts, you can't just walk out on stage without, it's a muscle like any other.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not obsessive about it at all. I remember one time reading in the English Times newspaper a guy blethering on about how his voice is so wonderful. And this is what he does. He avoids spicy foods. He goes to bed early. He avoids alcohol. And I was thinking, wait a second, I do all those things. And my voice, I can still hit the same notes that I hit in 1982. But Don't Pay the Ferryman or Borderline or one of those things. Actually, the hardest thing, if you don't play the guitar for 3 or 4 weeks, Christ, it hurts your fingers. So I try to pick it up every couple of days. I'm a happy guy, and I'm very fortunate to have being able to pursue the career.
We're really looking forward to you coming and touring all over the country. Is there one particular song that's your favorite, that's closest to your heart?
One of the songs I really showed me from the early days, if you can tell a good story, people will listen, and a good story will last eternally.
So there's a lot of imagination, there's a lot of drawing inspiration from the things that you
Yeah.
see around you. I'm sure there's a huge story behind Lady in Red.
Actually, I'll give your listeners a quick uh, idea about what I had in my head there. What happened was I was writing an album called Into the Light, and every song, apart from one that I'd written for my newborn daughter, was a powerful song because we were playing football stadiums at the time.
Uh-huh.
Anything 120,000 was the biggest. And I was co-headlining with Prince, with Tina Turner, Rod Stewart in big open air festivals. And I wanted to write a ballad. So one day I'm sitting at my piano. I've never seen, that's interesting. Never, the word never. And that's the key to the song. And I know it's a Marmite song. Some people hate it, some people love it, but nevertheless, it's a massive worldwide hit. Um, and it's basically two people going out for a party. That's what I had in my head. She's upstairs doing the lipstick and he's downstairs marching around shouting, "Hey, we're late for the party, come on." And then they go off to the party in a frosty silence. He goes off to the right and has a few beers, and his wife goes off to the left. And the problem is most men have no idea what their wife or the girlfriend were wearing. We understand, décolletage and short skirts, but that's about it. That's what we can remember. So he, after a few beers, looks into the other room, and there's this woman, his wife, surrounded by admirers, and she's looking stunning in a red dress. And he has that moment of utter jealousy. And then the point of the song is this. He goes up to her and he says, "I'm sorry, I've been working too hard recently. We should go off on a holiday together." It's that acknowledgement from the person to his partner. "I haven't been paying you enough attention recently, and I'm very sorry." That's what it's all about.
I love it. I love it even more now that I understand that than I have for years. Chris, thank you so, so much for chatting with me. I'm so thrilled that you're a humble, down to earth regular, everyday person, despite all of your
Thank you.
successes. But we
Thank you.
congratulate you heartily for giving us all the music, and we cannot, as I said, wait until you come to Australia. 50 years in the industry, you're playing all around this country of ours. It's been too long, 16 years, I think, since you were
Yep.
here last. We might just hang on to you and not let you go back across the pond.
Oh, that would be good. That would be good. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much. Pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, you too. All the best.